With the great-great-great-granddaughter of John Bell Hood. All right. Thank y'all. Y'all have a nice tour.
Thank you.
Go too. We're about prepared to rush the Ohio boys, brush them aside or go over and split the retreat in two down here. General Bate reprised to General Cheatham via courier. Excuse me. I have a lung disease that I've picked up over the last 2 years of campaigning in this weather. General Bate tells General Cheatham, I'm 200 rods from the road. I have my objective in sight. Cheatham's response is report to me or report to me under arrest. And when we stop firing and head towards Spring Hill, I can see the remnants of the Ohio boys tailing the road. One of them, of course, was in that fellow right down on the porch, Mr. Kelly. I'm not so lucky. I'm going to survive the carnage at Franklin. And I'll not survive Nashville. On December the 16th, 1864, about 4:30 in the afternoon, I am mortally wounded at a place called Shies Hill. I will die on January the 3rd, 1865, in a hospital in Nashville, in what was known as First Presbyterian Church. I will never return home to Nolensville. You folks have a good evening. You follow your guide and fear no danger. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. Hello. How are you all? Good. One more coming out? Where are y'all from today?
I'm from Austin, Texas.
Texas. All right.
I live in Middle Tennessee after a life living in the West.
Outstanding.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. My brother Francis stood out there for a couple of years of his life, so yes, I know all about Oklahoma as well. My name is Captain Theodoric Carter. I have a 20th Tennessee, Company H, and I'm also a local Franklin boy as well. Born to Fountain Branch and Pauley, up about 20 miles north of us, a little town called Franklin. You might have heard of it. It's a nice little town. My house sits right on this Columbia Turnpike. Nice big red brick house. Can't miss it. My mom and dad had 12 kids. 7 of us survived, and I was the 10th child of that. 4 girls and 3 boys. Growing up, of course, though, was pretty challenging because at 12 years old, I lost my mother. Mary Armistead Atkinson had passed away because of a really strange disease that was just nasty. They call it the flu nowadays, but it was just, she couldn't take it. Now, while this took an impact on me, my father did step up, took care of us as much as he could, and rose us to be fine gentlemen as well. Now, growing up as a kid, I cannot put a book down. Studying law, Greek and Roman mythology, architecture, land surveying. I could probably finish a book about 3 or 4 days to be tough, so I just could not put it down. In fact, by 19 years of age, I passed the bar exam, the exam to become a lawyer. 21 was full on practicing in the courtroom. By 22, the Army of Tennessee, and of course the war had started. My brother Moscow was appointed captain of the 20th Tennessee. And who else they need to staff that officers? This guy. Yes, I was actually appointed as a provost marshal. Pretty much make sure that the men are in line, make sure they're all, of course, kept well in order. Also deal with prisoners of war, make sure they're treated well, and get to their destinations. As the war continued by 1863, I've been appointed as the assistant quartermaster. So I deal with supplies, ammunition, crates full of food. That was all my responsibility. With this responsibility, appointed as well to the rank of captains. Now, I'm a full-fledged officer with a better pay raise and better living conditions as well. Who doesn't love that? Well, during my time in 1863, moved around from Tullahoma, even sent to Chattanooga. But there I found, of course, the Chattanooga Daily Rebel. You may have heard of it. It's a well-renowned newspaper in Chattanooga. Well, I wanted to give the family something to have because as moms and dads and parents, we want to know, how's our boys doing? Where are we going to next? Where is our new mission? And so I wrote them the name Mint Julep, name of the drink as well. And several letters, including one I can recall. And actually around this area, Murfreesboro. We had moved on by then. And my colonel, Thomas Benton Smith, had gotten pretty used to the local ladies in Murfreesboro. And I had a theory. I know when the ladies would come by camps because my clean white shirt would disappear all of a sudden. And it was also another theory why these darling creatures could not find me handsome. I believe that underneath the conscript age, I believe underneath 18 or 16, as you can imagine, there's a reason why they didn't find me as handsome as I am. It wasn't all suitabilities though. By 1863 at Missionary Ridge, Chattanooga, I was captured. Sent to Johnson's Island, Ohio, where there we suffered the worst winter on record. Even the locals, right, Ohioans, they even said this is the worst record we have ever seen. They lived here for 20 years. Negative 20 degrees. Snow and ice piled as tall as me. Men didn't have blankets. Some men had to move their fingers and toes from frostbite. It was just absolutely nasty. Men were dropping left and right. But I got out of school. I was supposed to be transferred that summer of 1864 to a Maryland prison for officers. I had other plans. In rural Pennsylvania, me and 10 to 15 of my best friends, we jumped that moving train and headed down to Memphis. Fortunately, I was the only one who made it out. From Memphis, I made it to Dalton, Georgia, and rejoined the Army of Tennessee, then commanded by General John Bell Hood. He had given orders that we were moving to Nashville and take it back from those Yankees and reclaim what is ours, Nashville, my home state. I'm going home. As we traveled along the way, of course, we stopped here at Rippavilla. My men are camped just in the wheat field right next to it. My commander, Brigadier General Thomas Benton Smith, remember that colonel who kept stealing my white shirts? He gave me an early Christmas present, a 2-day pass to go home. So once I'm done with y'all, I'm going home, see my family, see my dad that I haven't seen in 3.5 years, my sisters, Annie Vick, Mary Alice, my brother Moscow. He should be home by now, my nieces. And I can't wait to see them. Do you have any questions about Todd Carter, or, excuse me, myself? I should say about myself, because I talk about myself so often and use third person in many, many different reasons. I don't know why. But any questions? I also have a lot of cool stories, so if you ask, I uncover some treasure.
And in general, Union and Confederate, what's the average age of a typical?
It varies.
Captain?
I've seen old guys as old as 65 to 70. The oldest was 80, what I recall in a paper. The youngest was around 9. He's a boy from Ohio. Actually, he was 9 years old. He was a young boy and will serve later on to be actually a world-renowned in the Army. Yes.
I guess the lowest age I've ever met is going to be 7 because I'm 7 years old.
You're 7 years old. Not outstanding. It depends which army you're serving, though. That is the question. There's only one army in this uniform, and my Yankee captain over there. I don't, sir. Reason why I'm on as well. But yeah, so the average age could be, I'd say for the North, a solid 22, 23. I would say that just based on the records of the general perspective. But for Confederates, you are going to see those 19, 20. So relatively, high school to college kids, those are your typical.
Did they pay you for your time at Captivity?
That's a great question. As far as I know, I was not get paid. I was paid in blankets and provisions, which I never received, because I am, of course, the enemy. Right? And this is all before this thing called the Geneva Conventions.
No pay on liberty.
No pay.
No, I mean, when you returned to the Confederate Army,
When I returned, I had no money. In fact,
Yeah.
I had to borrow $20 from one of the men to outfit myself.
but you returned as an officer, you retained your rank.
Just like nothing happens.
And how long were you in captivity?
I was in captivity for about, I'd say, 6 to 7 months. So most of the winter and early spring.
So they didn't pay you for that time you were in captivity.
Absolutely.
If you didn't visit the paymaster, they didn't visit you.
They didn't visit me. And I'm sure I have bills that got to be paid as well. I will tell you this one thing.
Paymaster records only show when they were muster call.
Yeah.
They were not paid unless they answered the muster call.
That's why we had to wake up early to get paid. That's right. Stand in that huge, huge line. But of course, I will say this one quick story because it is relative, of course, to the area. When I was a young kid, I actually had a great idea with my brother Francis that one day we're going to run away from the house. All right, we have a whole plan. We follow this Columbia Turnpike and just go where they take us. My brother Francis said, "Well, Todd, where are we going? Where should we go?" I said, "Let's go to heck." In other words, but we do have someone 7 years old, so I can censor myself. We hopped on a wagon full of logs. We're on our way. We're going to go down to Columbia, and that's when Dad found us. At Fountain Branch, he is a very respectful man. He's gentle and kind, but he did discipline us extremely well. And I will never forget that in my entire life.
So where were you when the Battle of Spring Hill was?
Spring Hill, I was with General Thomas Benton Smith. I was just in reserve. Since I'm administrative, I'm more logistical. I'm not out there, so luckily. But it will be, some sources say that I was on my way home, but most likely I was here.
Then did you follow on up to Franklin?
I did. I will follow up Franklin, and I will go home. And my counterparts can tell my story from there. Because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
These
that's
guys do,
right.
apparently. So.
Okay.
Yours, Sergeant?
After the Battle of Spring Hill here, the Confederate Army moved into Franklin on November 30th of 1864. And the battle started. They fought all throughout the kind of late afternoon into the night and stuff. And Captain Carter got to go home. He actually got to the house up there. They had boys, said, "Follow me, boys, I'm going home." And he was actually wounded 9 times. After everything had settled down, had calmed down, I'm bad about names, so I'm
Thomas Benton Smith. Want to take over?
Thomas
Benton Smith.
Benton Smith went to the house and got to the cellar, got his family out, and he told them he knew where Todd was at. And they went out with a lantern about 175 yards from the house, and they found Captain Carter's body on the field. They got him off the field, they brought him into the house, and he was still living, but he had 9 bullet holes in him, and one of the 9 was a bullet above the left eye. The surgeon took the bullet out, gave it to the family, and on December 2nd, Captain Carter died.
24 years old.
That's how he made it home.
Of course, after my body was in state, there was local Franklin girls came by, including one in particular. Her name was Fanny Park. Now, in earlier letters, I do mention Fanny several times. So there's a theory that it could have been either a crush, maybe a girlfriend. Who knows? She'll later marry a surgeon and have a wonderful life, have many, many kids, and she'll be okay. How about that?
That concludes our tour.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Captain Todd
I'm here.
or? All right.